Hello and welcome to EC&M Asks. This is a Q&A video series where readers ask their questions and subject matter experts answer those questions. So my name is Ryan Mayfield. I'm the founder of Mayfield Renewables, been involved in the solar and solar plus storage industries for going on 25 years now, and heavily involved in education around code and in the code making panel. So I'm happy to be here and tackle some of these questions. So today's question is one that we've seen for a long time coming through, specific to our solar installations. And the question is, can I run AC and DC conductors from my PV system in the same Raceway? And it's a great question. And again, there's definitely some specific requirements in code. And so short answer is yes, you can, as long as you follow all the different rules. And so the place that we're going to start here is we're going to go look at Article 690, so PV systems. We're talking about PV system circuits specifically. And the place to go look in the 2023 code is 690.31B1. And that's titled Conductors of Different Systems, so aptly named. And it's interesting, this language in code, it used to be, gosh, I feel like it was in 690.4 previously, number of cycles ago, got moved over to 31, which makes a lot of sense. 31 is wiring methods within Article 690. And the language has it's been there for a long time, as I said, and it's changed a little bit over the years, but the base of it is there. And it's an interesting read. So I highly encourage you to go take a look at 31B in the 2023 code. And the charging statement, the charging language in code basically says that the PV system DC circuits shall not occupy the same equipment, wire enclosure, cable, Raceway as other non-PV systems, or inverter output circuits. So that's a pretty big or right there. And then it goes on to say, unless it's separated by a barrier or partition. So this is like, it's interesting because the charging language is no, but unless you do it this way. So it's kind of a yes. And then in 2023, I thought it was great because they added some very clear and specific exceptions for that. And so again, really, the 23 language is more clarification than it is change, I would say, from the 2020 version. So highly recommend, even if you're still in the 2020 code, to go look at 23. It just adds the clarity and I think would be helpful for you in your installations. So again, charging statement says no unless you have a barrier or partition. And then the exceptions that are there there's 3 exceptions, and they're all predicated on a requirement that actually shows up in 300. So if you go back to Article 300, what it's saying is that the installation rating of all your conductors has to be rated for whatever the highest voltage is in that pipe. So if you're running a residential PV system, the maximum system voltage would be 600 volts DC. It means all of your conductors inside that pipe would have to be rated at 600 volts DC as well. So if you're running communication cables specifically, which is kind of a common thing for rapid shutdown, which is a requirement for our PV systems, you can run some control wiring in there, but it would have to be 600 volt listed. You can't just run 150 volt low voltage or whatever conductor in there, because it's in the same pipe as this 600 volt wire. If it's a commercial system, it's going to be upwards of 1,000 volts. A rooftop commercial system would be 1,000 volts. Ground mounted systems we are seeing 1,500 volts DC. So it's important to know that if you're running these conductors in there, these control conductors, and that's what the first exception says, is it's for these control conductors that it has to have that higher voltage. And so if you are running conductors from the ground level up to a roof with your PV power conductors, the first exception is talking about these signaling or remote control cables. And so that's what these are. And so that would be acceptable. That's completely fine. The second exception is, I would say, is kind of the key one, in my opinion. And it talks about inverter output circuits shall be permitted to occupy the same junction box, pole box, or wireway as the PV DC circuits. So if you read closely the charging statement in 690.31, it says you don't do this unless you put in a partition. And this is further just saying that you just need to meet these wiring requirements. So it's identification and grouping are the things that you have to meet. So this is a common application in the field where you have an inverter and you're going to drop or you have the DC coming in from the solar array, and you want to have a wireway or a trough underneath, and you want to use that to manage both the DC conductors and the AC conductors. And you can do that per this code section. So you can have DC and AC inside that same wireway. You just have to have them identified and grouped separately so that it's anybody coming in and servicing them later would be able to see that. So definitely, yes, you can do that. And then the third one talks about if you're using metal clad DC conductors in metal clad, you can actually, because it's being isolated, it's grouped and isolated by its nature, being in a metal clad or a multi-conductor jacketed cable, then you can put it in with the inverter output circuits or non-PV system conductors. So we have some exceptions. So it's just the way they write it. It's interesting that don't do it unless you meet these rules. And so kind of a backwards way of thinking about it a little bit. So hopefully that's helpful. That's one, again, it's a question I see come up over and over again. And, it's one that, hopefully this is looking at these different sections and kind of putting them into practice is helpful for you. So I appreciate your time and look forward to speaking with you on the next EC&M Asks.